Horizon Online. My name's Chris.
And I'm Erica, and we're the pastors of Horizon Church. Horizon Church exists so that you and others can discover your God-given purpose. We do that in three ways. We help you find connection to God and to others. We help you be a part of impacting our community. And we help to experience the generous love and forgiveness of God so that we can share it with a world desperate for it. If this is your first time connecting to Horizon Church, we want you to be a part of connecting, impacting, and being generous. Please take a moment to text the number 94000. Text the word Horizon to that number. You'll get an opportunity to fill out a connection card, and we will make sure to connect with you this week so that you can be a part of connecting, impacting, and being generous in our community as we discover and help others discover their God-given purpose.
If you're looking to take the next step in your faith journey, I invite you to go to HORIZONTPA.INFO, and it's there. That's our one-stop place for all things Horizon, for how you can connect to some of the small groups that are going on, for how you can expand your impact in this community by serving with Horizon. And it's also there that you can share your financial gifts of generosity. And so we want to thank you for joining us this morning for worship.
This week I heard a quote that the opposite of depression is not happiness, it's purpose. And today, Pastor Chris is going to share a message with you after the band sings about how you can discover your purpose even when the circumstances around you aren't really great. How God is forming you to have a mighty purpose in this world. I can't wait for God to change your life through this experience. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Given me, Jesus, make new wine.
Hey there, welcome to Horizon Online. My name's Chris, and I'm one of the pastors of Horizon Church, and we are so excited that you're joining us today. We're kicking off a new message series called Pray for It, Work for It, and we're going to be studying the book of James over the next 4 weeks. It's one of my favorite books of the Bible, and so I'm excited to really delve into the message series. There are some things in life that I just want to say no thanks to. Mushrooms on my pizza? No thanks. Freezing cold weather? No thanks. There's a reason why I live in Florida. Do you want to put all 3 kids to bed? No thanks. We also have a newer chicken named Kevin. Do you want to put Kevin to bed? Kevin, our chicken, likes to get on the roof of our chicken coop. So every night, one of the two of us, between Eric and I, have to go outside and get Kevin off the top of the roof of the chicken coop and put her inside the chicken coop. If the chicken's name is Kevin, it's probably going to have some problems. And I want to say no thanks to that every night when Erica asks me to do that. There are so many things in our lives that are tough. Our daily situations, these daily things that come into contact with that we want to say no thanks to. Whether it's that phone call, that text message that just throws our whole day off, just no thanks to that. Maybe it's the marriage problems, no thanks to that. Maybe it's the divorce we don't want, no thanks to that. Maybe it's the cancer diagnosis, no thanks to that. Maybe it's losing a child, no thanks. There are so many things in our daily lives, these trials of everyday life that we want to say no thanks to. And for some of us, when we read the book of James, if you're familiar with the book of James, you might even want to say no thanks to James himself. No thanks to James, because the trials that James talks about here in this first chapter are the hard stuff in life. And we want to say no thanks to that, right? No thanks to those kinds of things in our lives. No thanks to those trials. But yet, I think we'd be foolish to completely write off this book of James. James was a leader of the church in Jerusalem in the first century for about 30 years. And he was, in fact, the brother of Jesus. He was there at the crucifixion, and he saw the crucifixion, and he was a witness to the resurrection, that Jesus was no longer in the tomb, that death was conquered. And James, as the leader of the church in Jerusalem, was also among the people, these Jewish Christians in Jerusalem, that were suffering in those 30 years that he was in leadership. Because the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem became third-class citizens. There was the Roman citizens, there was the Jewish people, and now these Jewish Christians that were now even excluded from Jewish culture. And so when we read Paul's writings, and Paul is writing to the people in Rome trying to get money to support the Christians in Jerusalem, he's trying to support these people that James is caring about. James was surrounded by people in need, and he was leading in the midst of a crisis. So James knew a little bit about the trials of everyday life, because these were the people that he cared for each and every day. And so we would be foolish to write off James, to say no thanks to what you're talking about, because he knew about suffering. He knew about the hardships of everyday life. And so we're going to dive into the book of James. And if you've grown up in the church or spent any amount of time, you've probably heard some of these words from James chapter 1. Go ahead and open up your Bible if you got it with you. If not, it'll be across the bottom of the screen. And so I want to do a little something different, because this is a verse that I probably memorized when I was about 20 years old. And it's a verse that I know well, or verses that I know well. And so one of the things that I did this week as I was preparing for this message was kind of switch up the order of the wording here, because I think it helped to illuminate something new for me this week. Some different translations use this order of it, and so I think it's helpful. So we're going to switch it up with so if it's a little different, it's because I'm trying to read it a little differently. So we're going to start off here. Whenever you face trials of many kinds, And so right off the bat here, James doesn't say if you face trials of many kinds. He says whenever. The trials are going to come, and James knows this so well, and we know this fact, right? That everyday life has its own trials. Everyday life is going to produce something that's going to throw us out of whack. And the word here for face, the word here for that we're going to face trials is actually a word that's often used in a situation of robbery. Like, it's coming as a surprise, right? That's how those text messages come that throw our whole day off. There's complete surprise to us. When we face those kinds of surprises, the trials can be even worse, right? But yet these trials that James is talking about, when we face those trials of many kinds, these trials are actually opportunities, James says. Opportunities. And we might even be going through one of those right now. You might be walking through one of those trials right now, and I've got nothing else to say other than that these trials, they can flat out suck. They can be terrible in our lives, right? Because it might be that cancer diagnosis. It might be losing a child that you're going through right now. It might be that you've been gossiped about, that you've been stabbed in the back, that a relationship that you poured all of your energy into has gone down the drain. Trials, they absolutely, terribly, they're awful in our lives. But yet, James tells us that those trials are an opportunity. Trials are an opportunity. And so, when we keep reading in James about these trials, he says, consider these opportunities. Consider them pure joy, my brothers and sisters. Consider right here, he's telling us to reframe, to rethink how we even begin to think about our trials. Rethink about them as opportunities. Rethink about them as opportunities. Because you know that the testing of your faith, right? And faith here is our confidence in God. Faith is just our confidence in God. To remember that God has been with us in the past, that God will be with us moving forward, even in the midst of this trial. Our confidence that God is who God says God will be. That's what it means to have faith. That the testing of your faith, the testing of your confidence in God. And what is testing? If we kind of go back to our school days, what happens when we are tested? It's just finding out how authentic our confidence in God is. Are we being authentic in how we live our faith? And so I think when I, in my own experience, when I face a trial, when I feel that my faith is being tested, it begins to strip away those layers that are about me. What can I get out of my faith, right? Those spaces in my life where I've just been pretending about my faith, where my faith is artificial, where my faith is not really deep, right? And when we begin to test that, it begins to reveal the authentic parts of our faith, the authentic parts of who we are and how we've been shaped by God and our trust in God. No longer are we living that counterfeit faith when we're in the trial because it's been stripped away. It's been pulled away from us. And so James goes on to say that faith, that the testing of this faith produces perseverance. That this testing actually produces something. And what it produces is perseverance. Perseverance here is that even under the pressure, the stress of the trial, that we can withstand, that we have a faith that withstands, right? And that's really where the tension, just think about those moments when you're exercising, right? That those moments where you're living in the tension of like, can I do one more rep? Can I run one more mile? Can I pedal just a little further on my Peloton? Can I push myself a little harder? That tension, and your muscles begin to shake and you're not sure if you can keep. But God says that our faith muscles are working just like that. That in the trial, we, in that moment, our faith muscles are producing the perseverance to finish. The perseverance to finish. And so often in the midst of our trials, right, we want to quit. We want to bail out. God, this is just too much for me. I can't do it. And we want to find somewhere else. There's got to be something easier, something that's going to be more enjoyable, right? But God says this opportunity is for you to grow your faith, to have a clearer understanding of the purpose that I have for you in your life. That this is an opportunity to build the kind of character that I want you to live out, to walk justly and love mercy. Pastor Rick Warren says that God cares much more about our character than our comfort. And in the midst of a trial, we have to remember that God cares about your character. God is using these as an opportunity. God did not bring the trial, but God is going to use it as an opportunity to grow your character, to grow your purpose, to grow you. And so let perseverance finish its work. Don't bail out. Don't quit. So don't shortchange the process. It's right in that tension that God is moving. It's right in that tension that God's activity in your life is happening. It's there that God is moving you to maturity, is making you more complete so that you will not lack anything. And when we have that kind of maturity of faith, we move away from our own egotism. We move away from our need to criticize other people. We move away from that need to please everyone else because we live with an eternal purpose that has now matured us and completed us. And it's in the opportunity of the trial that happens. It's in the opportunity of the trial that happens. So don't shortchange the process. Don't shortchange the process because when we're in those trials, that is what's going to make us whole. What you often think is going to destroy you, God says, I'm going to make you complete in that. What you think is going to absolutely pull you down and crush you, God says, I'm going to build you up in that. It's because it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to be more mature, to be more complete. That's what God does in the midst of our trials. God sees it as an opportunity, invites us to see it as an opportunity as well, to not continue to live in the patterns of our old ways of living, but to transform us in those trials, to transform us to something new. I don't know about you, but I find myself so much more inspired by the folks that actually have trials and they grow from their trials. Because I find myself getting so frustrated from those people, at least from the outside, that it looks like everything is going right in their life. And God is just like abundantly blessing them, right? And it seems like everything is going perfect, and it doesn't seem like they have any trials. But I love a good story of when someone has faced trial and they've grown from it. And I'm inspired in my own faith to hear their story of how they've grown. And so I want to share with you a little bit of Chris's story today.
You know, I've had some really, really low points in my life. I would say that the morning after Halloween, when I had come to the realization that I could not continue on the way that I was. I think luckily for me, alcohol was the factor in that scenario. But it was certainly the lowest point that I can remember where it was either something's got to change or there's no reason to continue on. I had always been a drinker, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it always was kind of the thing that kept me, what I felt, level-headed, as sad as that is to say now. And 2 years ago, November, finally decided that I wasn't going to do it anymore. Had tried cutting back on alcohol many times, and it was just with 3 kids, decided they deserve better. And so, that was deciding to give up alcohol was certainly something that I couldn't have done on my own. And I would certainly say God was a driving factor in that one.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that powerful story. I want to end today with 3 things that I've learned about trials from planting trees. I'm a bit of a tree hugger right now, living in Florida. It's fruit trees, but when we lived in Nashville, I had a great plan. The state parks of Tennessee gave away trees. Like literally you could just get a free tree. And I thought this was going to be awesome. We needed some trees in our backyard, and they were giving away these yellow maples. And I was like, we're going to get some yellow maples, and they're going to be beautiful. And next fall, like there's going to be this gorgeous foliage in the backyard of yellows and reds and oranges from these yellow maples. And needless to say, we went and picked up our 3 trees that we had ordered from the state parks of Tennessee, and we literally picked up 3 twigs. 3 twigs. I'm not lying. I thought we were getting this, and this is what we planted, is a twig. All right? And so we planted this twig, and it looked like a twig for 4 years that we lived in the house in Nashville. And by the last year, I think there were 2 or 3 leaves on it that were kind of yellowish, that were kind of pretty, that then did fall off in the fall. But it was nothing like I ever imagined. And the 3 things that I learned from those trees was, the first is that growth is slow. Growth is slow. And in the same way that Chris made the decision that he could no longer live his life with his addiction, the growth from that was slow. When he made that decision that day, that there were ups and downs, but the growth to where he is today has been slow. Just as that tree was still pretty much a twig when we left. The second thing that I learned from those trees is you can't really see growth always. Like luckily we had those 3 or 4 leaves at the end of it, but there really wasn't much growth. I literally could have pulled up a lawn chair and sat outside every day, and I never would have seen growth. And I think that can be one of the most frustrating things about when we are in the midst of trials, is we want it to come quickly, but then we also want to see it happen immediately. And we usually never see that kind of growth until we look back on our lives. It's hard to see the kind of growth that we expect in those trials. And finally, the third thing that I've learned from those trees is that those trees will outlast the trials, right? Those trees in 60 years will be huge, and they'll be what I imagine them to be the day we picked them up. They'll have beautiful leaves every October and November. And those are going to way outlast the trials, the snowfalls, the rains that come its way. And in just the same way, the decision that Chris made to address his addiction, that decision that day is going to way outlast any other trials that come his way. It's going to be in that decision that he's going to now be the father that he wanted to be that day. He's going to outlast that decision, that trial that he was in that day. And it's in that we can be remembered, that our jobs are going to change, our relationships may fall away, our income may go away, but yet the kind of faith that James is talking about here, the kind of mature faith that's grounded in an eternal walk with God, is not going away. It's something that we can cling to every single day, no matter what the trial is. And that's the kind of faith I want in my life. That's the kind of faith that I want. So what about your story? Where are those moments where you've had an opportunity to grow? Where are those places you have grown, where your faith has been matured, that you're moving to completeness right now? Where are those places? And have we spent time thanking God? Because it's in those growth opportunities. It's those growth opportunities that are worth it, to pray for it, to work for it. James invites us to begin to think about, to reframe our minds around trials as an opportunity to grow into a faith that is mature and complete, lacking nothing. So today, I want you to pray with me. Join me in prayer. God, we might be in the midst of a trial right now. We may have gotten a call this week that we never imagined wanting to get. We may have gotten a diagnosis. We may have lost someone we loved. We may have lost our jobs. We may be in a trial right now. But God, shower us with your grace and give us the eyes to see where there are opportunities for growth in the midst of it. Move us today towards that mature and complete faith that doesn't lack anything. God, give us the strength when we want to give up, we want to bail out, we want to let go of the process of trusting you. Give us the strength to stay true to you, to stay the course right now. That you are doing a work in our life to change us, to mold us, to give us purpose. God, help us to take a step to living the kind of character that you have called us to. God, we love you and we thank you for loving us. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.